Yeah,
right?
because you can't trust what you see. You can't trust what you hear. How can you live a life if you can't trust what you see? You can't trust what you hear. You can't trust what you think. I mean, like, that alone would drive a normal person insane.
Yeah. and imagine in like an age that you're growing, right? Like an age where you trust adults, 6 years old, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And obviously their parents put them there.
Right, because they were unmanageable. But then if you look back at ancient practices, and now it's becoming more modernized, there are some groups that are looking at it in a completely different way, and they're actually calling it a psychospiritual event, and basically classifying it as a difference in conscious experience that's very real and very important, and that all of us on some level, in some ways, have these experiences, but we just don't talk about them because we don't want to be institutionalized or called crazy or discounted. But we all have them. Every single person has them. The same person who would call you crazy will turn around and tell some story about how their grandfather came by, and they know it was him because it was a red bird and all this stuff, Like,
the thing is, I feel like the moment people acknowledge something like that, they have to accept that there's another reality they can't control. And I feel like people are afraid of this because we don't like to have things we can't control.
Yeah.
Everything. People like to be in control.
We like to be in control of everything other than ourselves. We want to let ourselves off the hook at every chance we can. So, like, we don't want to take generally, people don't like to take accountability. I think that's changing. But, like, if there is these other dimensions that are with you all the time, watching everything you do, well, your ass is showing a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
Let's see, David. Sorry. Hi, Giacomo, David. Guys, we weren't able to stream on YouTube for some reason, sorry, but we're in Miami TV. David says, my mom passed away from a horrible disease. I took care of her for 1 year and 8 months. Everything you're disclosing about what you went through with her is all true. The sundowning was what was always bad.
Yeah.
When the sun comes down?
Yeah, sundowning.
And that's when the energies are more active. That's crazy.
Yeah. And they just become like open channels, I believe, for passing spirits, passing whatever.
No control.
Unresolved generational trauma. I mean, they're just kind of, when you think about it too, like, end of life, it's your last chance to, like, get rid of the karma, right? It's your final stretch of, like, what can I heal in the time that I have left? Yeah. In a way, it's possible, I've never thought of it this way, that dementia and Alzheimer's could just be an acceleration because you're just clipping from timeline to timeline to person.
Yeah, I mean, why would you go back? Here we are, right? You're in dementia, sorry. Why would you go back? Why would your mind go back to a place that you're stuck in that place? Of course, there's a reason. There's a reason why you're there. Right. Like a regression. Yeah. What if they're living like a daily regression?
That's very possible.
We might be getting into something, you guys.
Yeah, that could be a really useful practice I mean, honestly, that whole section of society needs so much care, so much more attention and true care, not just a person in the room, because I took care of my two
injecting drugs into
uncles
them even.
As well, and my God, the abuse, like the abject abuse that happens. But it's because people with dementia and Alzheimer's are a lot, just like somebody with, diagnosed schizophrenia is a lot. It's a lot. Like,
nobody knows how to deal with them.
Yeah. I mean, there are new practices that are bringing in older practices. So like there's this institute in California called the Esalen Institute. And at one period in time, they don't do this anymore, but they in the 60s, they would take people who had schizophrenia and they would monitor them 24 hours a day. They had somebody in the room with them meditating. So they were devoid of any emotion. There was no judgment. It was just positive energy and neutral energy. And then they were trained to know that a schizophrenic will know exactly what buttons to push because they are a little bit psychic. So you could be sitting in the room with a total stranger and they're going to be like, your mom was mean to you, wasn't she? Just right out of the gate, they're going to know exactly what to say, and they might even have they don't know where it's coming from necessarily, but they'll know exactly what to say to really hurt you. And so then the game there is, if they can get you to react, then they can use your negative energy, and it becomes a real battle. Wow. And so the game, in a way, is like you sit And they noticed that by giving people with these schizophrenic awake, I don't like using that word, but I guess like these spiritual experiences, enough time, within a 2-week period, every single one of them resolved themselves. Every single one of them came back down to baseline. But they had emerged with all of these abilities that they could control because they were given the space and time to grab the reins of the situation.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So we have something else. Now, my mom was not psychic, but she would talk to her brother and sister from time to time, both of whom had passed away earlier. If this happened when my siblings were there, they would tell me, tell her to be quiet. I would say, why? She's not hurting anyone. Just because we can't see them doesn't mean she can't. Yeah. I've always, I've never seen or treated anybody with schizophrenia or dementia, but I've always had that idea that they're not clinically well trialed for some reason. And of course, I'm not a doctor, I'm nobody to say that, but energy-wise, with the things that you hear, it's like you're definitely tapping into something else that nobody else sees. Okay, let's tune back to our story. So you went into this save this person in your family from these crazy nurses, and I'm sure there was a lot more kids there that were going through the same thing. Were they on medication?
Oh yeah, I mean, once you get put in an institution, you're medicated. You're just medicated. And then...
Did she get out?
She's out and she's on medication. She doesn't talk about... If you
How
ask
did she
her
get out?
about
Did
it,
she just have to play it out?
she got out because she decided to not let herself go back in. After that experience with that young boy, something clicked in her because I think putting her in with the kids, she developed this she wanted to protect the kids. She was like, you don't get to tell that little boy that what he's seeing isn't real. And so then just that little piece of acknowledging and protecting that boy's personhood allowed her to protect her own personhood just a little bit more.
Right.
And so then she didn't allow herself to be put back in an institution, which means masking. She had to basically pretend like she wasn't seeing anything, she wasn't hearing anything, nothing was happening.
That's tough.
And so she will not talk about it. It's just not something that she's ready to talk about. So I was kind of like, at the same time that this was happening, I had gotten my dream job in Hollywood working for this incredible writer. So I was like trying to hold that job down and research. And I took some time off to see if I could help her. But when I couldn't help her, I continued my work in the film industry. And I did very well because all of my gifts were so suppressed. But what I did channel them into was being very helpful. So my psychic ability to know what's next made me very helpful because they'd be like, oh, that person's working on this, let me go help them. Oh, and then they're going to do that, and then they're going to do this, and then that. So I was just like, I was a fast learner with whatever was going on.
Yeah.
And because I felt so othered in my family, I developed a sense of just being helpful. I will be of value if I'm helpful. And that does really well in the film industry. If you're a hard worker who's conscientious and cares about people, a lot of people think that you have to be kind of mean-spirited in the film industry. Absolutely not. You won't get very far. You might get kind of far, but you're going to plateau.
People don't want to be around nasty people.
Yeah, really. And, generally people who are nasty, you better be really good at your craft.
Right, so people can take your shit.
Yeah, you better be the person that saves the job again and again and again. Then maybe you can be a grump. You don't get to come in
and ruin it for everyone. No. So there's positive vibes.
Very much so.
Interesting.
Yeah. For the most part, the majority of people in the film industry are good people. I believe every human is creative. And I think
me too.
Social I think TikTok has proven that everybody is an artist.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah.
And so the majority of people working in film are tapped into that creative energy, that magic and that positive. And
that's why they can come up with all these amazing ideas that I always tell you guys. The ideas of these writers, it's just because they're tuned into different frequencies.
Yeah, and that's what I learned from the mentor I worked with. He channeled everying.
Wow, amazing.
And that was such a beautiful experience.
And they're open about it? They're open about
the spiritual? He's open about it because he's such a good writer, and he's also had a very, a past that's using drugs, and he probably used every drug over the sun and was probably diagnosed with schizophrenia 1,000 times, and earned his stripes because he could, you know, it's like, oh, if you got a problem with it, well, check my medical history. You'll see I'm a nut, you know. Like, but he was also the best writer in Hollywood. I think anyone working in Hollywood who knows the thing or two would know he is the best. So being at his side and learning from him as he channeled the story and the characters and everything was so, that is just such a blessing for me.
Yeah.
I need to stop touching the mic, but.
Was he open about it? Like, would he say that this is something that he was channeling?
That's how the writer's room went. You'd walk in, he would be laying on the floor because he had a bad back, and he would just be talking.
And things that were coming to his mind.
Yeah, and he'd have a series of people just typing up what he was saying, and we also recorded it. Yeah.
We all need one of those. Do you guys want to type for us? We have so many ideas every day.
Yeah, we'll send you the audio. Yeah, and so you just, sometimes you would walk in and he'd be laying on the floor and he would just be talking and you would have to know which character
he's talking about
was which character because he would just be saying the dialogue for different characters. So you would have to know when you're writing.
A very talented team.
You ended up kind of flying like a flock of birds or a school of fish or something. You just knew where to be and when, and then unfortunately, like some of the bigger writers had to go work on their scenes in different rooms, so they couldn't be part of that like collective. And so I decided to volunteer as like the connective tissue. I'd be like, hey, he's changing act 1, you know, like from top to bottom, stop writing what you're writing, come back in the room, you know. But because he wrote that way, it just completely dissolved everything I learned before about like, you know, by page 17, you have to have this happen or whatever. He just threw all that out the window and showed that you can be divinely guided. And I think if you're coming from a pure place, then
you trust.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's trust. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So how was your journey when all that started happening? Did you start trusting yourself a little more, maybe with what you were feeling, or?
I did. I became within 6 months. No, faster than that. I mean, I was working on a film with him, and then we moved into a television series, and I started writing for the series, and right away my work was getting put into the episodes that were going on air. Yeah, and I was just initially I was hired as an intern.
That's the best. When you start as an intern, you earn your way up. You guys do internships. I loved my internships.
Yeah, but the one job I had, he said, I just need you to write. And it was me and about 6 other guys. And because he never checked up on your writing, he never asked you again, where's your writing? He just said, you're hired, just send me your writing. The other guys didn't write anything. I wrote, because I'm like, that's the job, yes sir, you know. And I just wrote, submitted my stuff, and the next thing you know, it's getting into the scripts.
That must have felt good.
It felt very good. Unfortunately, because there was this group I was the only girl in the whole place.
I was going to ask you about that. You just said it was all men. Like, how did that feel?
I was the only girl in the whole place. And then the guys, the interns, the other ones who'd been there for quite a lot longer than me, who weren't getting their writing published because they weren't writing, got very upset and started spreading rumors about me. That the reason my writing was getting used was because I was giving out, you know, sexual favors and things. And I confronted everybody. I was like, this is not okay.
Yeah.
This is making me feel really like unsafe, and like my writing is good. You're using it. Like what? And then because it wasn't true, nobody did anything about it.
Right.
They're like, we all know it's not true, so we're not gonna do anything about it.
That happens in every single industry, you guys. And I feel like there's still this, in Spanish it's called machismo.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, men still thinking that they do better than women in certain jobs. So when a woman steps up and does the job better, their feelings, it's like their manhood is just kind of like crushed all of a sudden. And men and women, you know, could be assholes. So you have to watch out.
And I mean, I just said, you know, we all know it's not true, and so but something should be done about it. And because nothing was done, one of the wives heard the rumors, and she didn't think you know. Anyway, it became easier politically to fire me than to deal with the situation. And so they let me go on a Friday, and the show was canceled on the following Tuesday. because you don't get to do that kind of stuff to people who are nice.
Karma, bitches.
And so like, it divided the writers' room. Well, actually, it kind of decimated the writers' room because all the big writers, the senior writers, were like, "Wait a minute, we need her. Wait a minute, we didn't realize that by not doing the right thing, we might actually be affected by having a writer that we're using."
Because you were the one getting published.
Yeah, and so they were pissed, and the other head writer almost left. Another huge guy, and he. But as like their like goodbye present to me, they rewrote a whole sequence in my honor, which I was like, yeah, thanks. What? Like all the effort that went into that sequence, you could have just like done before the right thing by letting go of these few guys that are just gross.
Let's get back to our spiritual journey.
While they were filming that sequence, one of the animals that they hired died.
Oh no!
Had to be herd itself had to be put down. We were working on a show with horses, and one of the horses that was on set got hurt and had to get put down, and PETA threw a fit. PETA called the studio and was like, we are going to break this story on TMZ, and you can either tell us the show is canceled or we can make you the problem. And they canceled the show. People were still filming.
Why did the horse die?
Because it was an accident. The horse wasn't supposed. It was an accident, kind of. That horse was not supposed to be on set. That horse was on a list that PETA gave them of horses that should not be on set because the horse was too scared. So they brought the horse on set, and the horse got scared, and it reared up, and it fell over and hit its head, and had to get put down immediately.
You killed the fucking horse.
Yeah, and so because that horse died, like they canceled the show so quickly that TMZ released. Meanwhile, I'm in bed depressed because I'm thinking my whole career is over.
Yeah.
I can't tell anyone the truth because Hollywood is so salacious. They're gonna think where there's smoke, there's fire. So I'm like, and people are gonna wonder, why aren't you writing on this show anymore? And I was just in bed depressed. And then I get a call from my mother saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry your show got canceled." And I was like, "Yeah. What? Oh, sure." You know, it did.
How did she know?
She heard on TMZ. TMZ released the story, and the studio canceled it through TMZ. And so people were still filming when it got canceled. It was
karma.
Absolute karma. So I felt that definitely made me feel.
Speaking of karma, because I didn't know we were going to talk about the job. So since you brought it up, how do they tap into those scary stories? Like, for example, the really scary stories, the one, we're not going to say names, of course, but if they're channeling good stuff, is there a possibility of some sorcery or stuff being done?
Absolutely, absolutely. On so many levels. I mean, there is sorcery done. Like, I now am sensitive enough where I can walk into a building and I'll be like,
feel it.
The owners who say they own this building do not own this building. Like, you know, it's like, it's that clear now. But yes, horror films, whether they know it or not, whether it's like intentional or not, you can open a portal, and then you're not writing alone, because writing, any art is a kind of channeling, I believe.
Absolutely.
And so if you're not checking your channel and purifying your channel, then you don't know what's coming through.
But you don't want to purify your channel when you're writing a scary movie, I guess.
Well, I think you should, because I've run into entities that like got left behind from
tell me about that.
Yeah, so like I went into where the Blair Witch Project was edited, and there was an ancient entity sitting in the corner, and because I was walking in, I was touring it to rent as office space for myself, and I literally like rounded a corner and backed out. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I did not know you were here. I did not know you were here. Oh my God. Like, and then my mind is like, oh, okay, I really want to rent in this area, but like, how can I handle knowing that this being is there and upset about being there? Because it had been summoned to help finish editing this movie, but was never let go.
Right.
And it was like stuck in this limbo. So then, like, long story short, or long story medium, I guess, that portion of building was slated to be torn down because they found some health code violation, and so that's how the entity was released.
So it was like trapped in the actual building.
It was trapped in and because I asked
And you
it,
communicated with it.
well, yeah, because I was like, I don't feel strong enough to like
Help you.
I'm gonna have to like get back up. But then like it all kind of happened within the course of a month, because I was looking at the office space nearby, and as I was thinking to rent that, and I did actually rent it until I found there was a health code violation. And then I asked the entity, like, if they demolish this section of the building, will you be free? And it was like, yeah, I'll be good. Like, I won't. They had done something to keep it there in the walls. So it was stuck. Yeah, it was bad energy that was stuck.
We've talked about this. I'm so happy that it's been confirmed. And I'm like, there's no way you can write about something so evil, even like The Exorcist and all that stuff. Like you said, sometimes it's probably not even on purpose. It just happens because, well, you're acting out a story, you know? So it's inevitable that if you're acting out a story of evil, evil is going to come and say like, hey, you're not doing it right. Maybe do it like this.
Yeah.
It's like, make sure. Okay, James says, I think I better start talking to whoever is under my desk. So he has, one of our members actually has someone like living under his desk that he hears cry sometimes.
Oh, okay.
How do you deal with that?
I mean, you kind of, I've not done that kind of work necessarily before. Well, okay, you got to
not on purpose.
You've got to treat them like a person. You've got a roommate or an office mate. You've got somebody there, and so you really have to have an open dialogue, a non-judgmental dialogue, where whatever you ask a question and whatever information comes to your head is the answer. Don't second guess it, because if you start second guessing it, then you are creating a fiction, and you're not really talking to, the being that you want to talk to. Yeah. And it's very possible that you might have and somebody who passed away and would like help passing on, which there's a lot of practices online that you can find how to do that. It's a meditation where you can open, you can help them go to the light. I have done that before actually, where you can kind of...
It's like a psychology lesson, like you actually talk to them and...
Right? You talk to them and you ask them like, what happened? How can I help you? Do you want to be here? Can I help? Do you know where you are? I'm sure that there's a lot of videos online that can help. But the same thing would say, if there's anybody watching who has, family members with schizophrenia, which is, hearing voices, it's the same. There's a group called the Hearing Voices Network that basically advocates for you to treat the voices as if they are individual people. And so you'll talk to them and say, say someone's one voice is just coming in to call you a bitch, like, oh, you're just a bitch, you'll never finish anything, blah, blah, blah. Then you're like, okay, I hear you. I'm a bitch, great. Okay, let's talk about why we feel like this, because I want to understand why you feel this way. Yeah. I'm not able to talk right now because I'm at work, but I will talk to you at 6 p.m. when I get home. And
you gave me a date
from 6 to 7. And then you
got an appointment.
And then you do. And then you have to make good and actually sit in that space from 6 to 7 and be present with the voices, whoever you're talking to. And that method has worked wonders for people. It's gotten them off medication for schizophrenia. Nice. There's a really great woman, her name is Eleanor Longden. She did a TED Talk. If you search the TED Talk called The Voices in My Head, or even Schizophrenia TED Talk, she's going to come up. She talked her way down from 20 voices to like 4. Wow. And she graduated with a psychology degree, and so now, thank God, she's in the psychology profession, working, understanding these principles of...
Doctors probably hate her.
Well, yeah, the pharmaceutical company certainly would hate her, but she's treating, anything with sentience, anything with a voice is a sentient being, and you're like, okay, we're going to talk to you with respect, and we're going to give you a time and honor it, because
one by one.
Yeah, one by one. Yeah. And so the same thing with entities or energies in your house. If you can't get a clear read, or if you're getting messages of like, this is my place, I live here now, there's a lot of things you can do. Sound is my preferred way of healing. So if you get like a crystal bowl or even a bell, sound really clears the space. Also,
I like the Tibetan bowls.
Yeah, the Tibetan singing bowls.
They're so beautiful.
Also, roses have a really high vibration. If you can get roses that are grown, For some reason I want to say white, but I
White.
think any color.
Okay.
But because the flower itself has a really strong vibration, a really high vibration. But you're going to want to make sure, if you can, to get roses that have the smell of a rose. If you notice, the roses that are sold in stores don't smell like roses anymore. Some of them do.
It's like they're hybrids.
Yeah, they're so hybridized that they decided that smell's not important anymore. Like, yeah.
So the real thing, you guys.
So if you have a friend who has a rose bush, you can go grab some roses, and just keeping them in the space will lighten the space.
Nice. I never thought about that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Life.
Yeah, and then you can say like, hey, I need the room right now. I've done that before in college. Actually, I lived in San Francisco, and I lived in a house that was built on top of an old cemetery, and we had a lady who would come in and just.
So you've always had that ability.
Yeah.
It was always open.
Yeah, I guess I just like tucked it away. But yeah, she came in once to bother me while I was studying, and I was like, ma'am, I need the room.
Get the fuck out. Excuse me.
And then I was like trying to pull in all of the energies of like my past dogs and like family dogs and stuff.
To protect you?
Yeah.
Like throw the dogs at her.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Did that work?
It kind of worked a little
Okay.
bit, but I did rush myself to finish studying faster.
Were you open about these abilities at work? Or did you always just keep to yourself? Because you're being very open.
Kind of. I
Okay.
mean, I think at this point I started to get pretty open, because at one point I started working in visual effects, and like I got to a
And
level
people were
of
nice
executive.
about it, or people would.
Yeah, I think it depends on the person. I think
Yeah.
everybody is open. Everyone loves a good ghost story, right?
Yeah.
Like, people are becoming more open, and I think but you just have to kind of like read the room, know your audience, know who's safe to share with and who's not, and don't share anything that's too personal or vulnerable with someone who hasn't earned it, just out of self-respect. That's a hard lesson I've had to learn.
Yeah.
I overshare, for sure.
You just shared a lot.
No, but this
But
is
you're good.
fine. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, because it's like, this is fine. We had planned on talking about a lot of this stuff anyway. We're on topic, so.
Okay, we had something else. Some horror movies, which are my favorite, are done so damn good that some people go away from the theater. Sorry that this chat cuts off. Then those events actually happened. Now, while some are based on true events, they still add a little more to the story to make it, I guess, scarier, or
Oh, yeah.
the true events, the true event horror movies. I don't know. Some true events horror movies are as scary as they're shown. I just think that they're a little unbelievable because
Yeah.
they're so scary.
Yeah. I mean, I really haven't worked in horror that much, and it's not a
Don't.
genre that I want to get involved in, because, like I said, I mean, I was telling, during the Super Bowl, I was telling you how like a commercial came on, and I could just feel right away the vibe was like negative. So I looked away. I don't normally watch the Super Bowl. I was just there with a friend. I looked away and I started chanting a mantra in my head just to pull my energy out of the situation. And then my friend next to me was like, oh, it's a Pfizer commercial. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want anything to do with that.
So Allison mentioned the other day how, and we talked about music a lot, right? But something she said really clicked, and I was like, aha. It's like that people, let's say negative people, right, harness energy from concerts. And it makes so much sense, because I never thought about it like that, but it's true. You have all these people with their energies, and a lot of these concerts there's rituals happening right in front of you, and people are all like, woo, I love you, and they're there like doing some kind of weird freaking mantra to you, so you're kind of brainwashed, but that's a lot of people. That's thousands of people's energies that are,
Yeah.
who knows what that's being used for.
Yeah. And anytime that they, like putting your hands in the air, we have really powerful chakras on our palms of our hands, and this is a consensual act. So if you're raising your hands, they're taking your energy, you don't know where it's going, but you're consenting to give your energy. So it happens at concerts a lot. I no longer go to big crowded concerts because it's happened so many times that I'm there and I just immediately get pulled out of the music, and I cannot leave the venue fast enough. I'm just like, get me out of here. Or I stand there awkwardly with my friends dancing around. And I'm like, I do not consent. I do not.
You will not suck my energy.
Yeah.
And you're like, let me just act normal, but you will not suck my energy.
And then I'm like, and you don't get my friends either. And then I start going whiter and whiter, and then like.
So you are protecting them. Yeah. So like, Allyson, why are you not having fun with us?
Yeah, I don't go enough to like be escorted out, but I imagine I did hear a story of some other women who were at an event that was supposed to be a conscious event, and they noticed that when people were asked to put their hands in the air, that there were entities that showed up on the stage to harvest the energy.
Shit.
And so then they were really powerful meditators. They started meditating, and then there was a third man.
I just got the chills.
Yeah, there was a man in the corner on the stage who had previously been like this with his eyes closed, and then he looked up and looked right at them.
He knew, he felt the stopping.
Yeah.
Huh.
Because he felt like they were at 100% or 90, and then the lady started working, and they dropped down to like 50 or 60.
I kind of want to go to a concert now.
Yeah.
We need to put this to the test, you guys.
Yeah.
I'm just going to get myself in trouble.
I'll be watching. I'm like, okay, security's coming.
Okay, so I love how you're so open about everything. You know, of course, you have to respect people's privacy, so but you're sharing. So now you could talk about, you actually have opened your mind to a frequency of speaking with animals.
Yeah.
When did that start?
I mean, I feel like I've always been able to talk to animals. Animals have always loved me, and I just kind of understand what they need, and I'll advocate for their needs. But then it wasn't until a few years ago, in 2018, when I learned that animal communication was a job you can do, and people are paid to do it.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a booming business now, because anyone who owns horses will tell you they're very expensive, and especially when they're unhappy. So you want to know what's making your horse unhappy.
Yeah. So they'll look for a solution.
Yeah, but the woman I learned about first was a woman in the UK who works with big animals in Africa remotely, because it's all on the quantum level.
Yeah, it's energy.
And she'll, every
insane.
time, for example, one video I watched, they were introducing a new tiger to the tiger paddock, and there's an introductory ring within the tiger paddock where you can put the new tiger, and everyone get to smell each other and get used to each other before they're face to face. But in order to walk the new tiger to the paddock, either all the tigers in the area need to be anesthetized and like sedated, so that they're asleep, or if they walk far enough to like the north end of their paddock, then it's considered safe to walk the new individual into the paddock, because it's a signal that they're okay, or they're far enough away that there's enough time. So her job mainly, or at that place, is to say, hey tigers, you got a new friend coming. They're arriving on Tuesday at 3 p.m.
And she's getting them when they're relaxed.
Yeah. So you can either stay and be put to sleep, which is going to be uncomfortable, and you're going to be groggy for a few days later, and they don't like that anyway. Or you can just walk to the north side of the paddock. And sure enough, at like 2:30 on a Tuesday, the tigers start walking their way to the north side of the paddock, because they don't want to deal with getting put to sleep and being groggy and uncomfortable.
Oh, well, I don't like that part, but I guess
it
keeps
not
the balance,
put to sleep.
No, I know. But they're drugging them.
Yeah, which
I guess there's no other way.
Yeah, well, you're right, because they could attack, and then you've got injured animals.
Yeah.
But using an animal communicator, they just take a nice walk to the other side. So I started working with I hired an animal communicator for my cat, because I was moving my cat from one place to another, and that was
depressed.
No, she was an old lady. She was a cat of 19 years old, living at my mom's house out in the rural, there is some rural land in Los Angeles with coyotes and everything. And she just wasn't doing very well, because there were some new barn cats that had arrived, and they were kind of bullying her and making it hard for her to get to food. So she was slowly starving, and I came back from this big film tour, and I got to look at her, and I'm like, okay, Tyler, you're coming with me. So, but she had been born at my mom's house. She was born in the towel closet, and I picked her out when I was 14. You don't really think when you're 14 that you're going to have a kitten in your 30s, but there she was. And
That's nice.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to.
Do you still have her?
No, she passed away a couple of years later, but I was like, Tyler, you're not going to be able to climb on the roof. You're not going to be able to go outside. I'm moving you into a duplex in the city, and it's going to be very different. And what do you think about it? Do you want to continue to live your life here, or do you want to give it a try in a completely new landscape? and she wanted to give it a try. And during the course of that conversation
How do you
with
hear
her,
it? Is it an actual answer, like you hear the intention?
the lady I worked with, yeah, you just hear it. But yeah, from my experience
Like
doing
entities,
it now,
right? Or ghosts?
yeah,
Same thing?
it's the
Okay.
same exact thing.
Yeah.
And you can, and what's cool with an animal though, and mind you, don't be discouraged if your animal, it's a little bit harder. Sometimes it's hard to talk to your own animal yourself, because similar to like a parent talking to a child that they're having a problem with, the child might find it easier to open up to a third-party therapist
Makes
or something,
sense, yeah.
or a counselor or a coach or something. So don't be discouraged if you aren't getting a clear signal from your animal, but try it out with your friends' animals, because that's what I've done to start. You know,
And they all hated you, right? Because the animals like you better.
the animals tell on them, and then you have to be like, hey, are you doing?
They all want to go home with Allison because she understands them.
Yeah, that's happened with animals and kids. I've like, especially with kids want to come home with me, and then I have to tell their parents, like, you know, don't worry, because they're like, this has never happened. Like, I'm a good parent. And I'm like, I know you're a good parent.
You just don't communicate like I do.
And I know this never happens. It happens a lot to me. But yeah, the animals, like, and you can tell by their body language when you're right on, you know,
Yeah.
like, and I got great confirmation a couple weeks ago. I was visiting a friend, and she was asking about her horse, and her horse showed me very clearly. She had a black horse, and this horse showed me, you know, where's my friend? I used to live with my friend, and she showed me a white horse. And I said to my friend who I was visiting, you know, your horse is missing her friend. Did you choose to live with another horse? And I was too shy to mention, you know, your horse is showing me a white horse. I just didn't. I left that out because I was kind of shy. And she's like, no, she used to live with a tan horse back where I bought her. And so I was like, okay, maybe I'm wrong. And then the horse said to me, well, my friend had a really great sense of humor, and I really miss her, or miss him. And I was like, well, she's saying she misses a horse with a good sense of humor. And my friend didn't put it together. But then the next day...
How's she going to know if the horse has a good sense of humor?
Well, I'll tell you how you know. Because we watched a video of my friend was randomly scrolling through videos the next day. And I'm sitting there, it's like 45 minutes of her going back in time in her phone. It's like as if I grabbed my phone. I was like, hey, Jenny, let me show you the last 3 years of my life in photos. You'd be like, what is happening? But something kept telling me, like, sit through it, be patient.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm just going to be patient while this person shows me their life. And then we get back like 3 years, and there's videos of her horse playing with a white horse. And I'm like, who's this? And she's like, oh, that's Hero. He used to live here. He lived in the paddock next to Taylor. And I didn't think about it, but I used to let him in, and Taylor would play in their paddock. So of course she would think that this is someone she lived with, because it was her neighbor and her friend. And you could tell this white horse had a great sense of humor, because the white horse would come rumbling over and like nudge Taylor, and then run away, and then come over and nudge Taylor, and then Taylor would chase the horse. And so then you'd see them playing around together. So like, you know.
What happened to him?
He got sold to another, the owner wanted to sell Hero to a younger person who would ride Taylor, because Taylor was, I believe, an Arabian. I think there's Persians and Arabians. One of them is very active, and he was a very active horse, and so she wasn't riding him enough, and wanted to sell him to a younger person. So
they should have done like a goodbye thing.
Yeah,
right?
that would have been nice, because animals they understand most everything, but they would like to get clued in. Like if you're needing to take your animal to the vet, they'd like to know about it. Or if you're leaving on the weekend, you know, to go out of town, let them know, like, I'm going to be gone for 2 days, so-and-so's going to come watch you, or,
they'll get it.
Just let them know, because they'd appreciate that heads up.
I like it. I've always understood that there is no account of ghosts actually causing harm to someone. Okay. There could be ghosts that can cause harm. I think so.
I mean, I think like
scratching, bumping, sudden death.
Some people do have problems. I think low key also, like, some problems that you can have are, if you're in a room with a depressive energy, you're just going to be having a certain percentage of your energy sucked out.
Yeah. And that affects your health, obviously.
Yeah.
If I may ask, how did you guys cross paths? It seems like you guys have known each other for a very long time.
Oh, cool.
We have only met once before. And yes, it does seem like we've known each other forever. But I guess when you're, I always say that when you're in a certain path, right, you just attract the people that are in your same frequency. I mean, I don't think you could sit with someone and talk about how you're talking with animals just to anyone. So it's like, as you can see, we're very comfortable talking about this. And I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. But yeah, Allyson, well, if you want to share it real quick.
Which one?
That you ended up here at Energy like 3 years ago?
Yeah,
right?
yeah, 2021. 2021, I had, like, something happened at work, again, like a political thing, and I was just like, screw you, film industry, for a minute. Sometimes that happens. I'm just like, I need to just go on a walkabout. So I decided to come down to Mexico to have a retreat with some other ladies nearby, and I rented a room here at Energy Tulum because it was nearby the other retreat, and there was so much serendipity getting me here. First of all, you don't take people for just one night, but you let me book for one night. And then there was something else too that you don't normally. Well, anyway, yeah, like there. And
I don't know. I don't remember.
I couldn't find it, and as I was driving, because it's out here in the middle of the jungle, and I had decided to just drive myself, and there was a lot of events on the way here.
You had low gas. You were lost.
I was lost. I didn't have enough gas. But I kept passing this fish restaurant, and every time I passed the fish restaurant, I passed it once, then I knew I went too far, so I turned around and passed it again.
And your dad was guiding you.
Yeah.
You felt your dad's presence.
I felt my dad, because at one point I got scared, and then Enya came on, a Mexican radio station. Enya's coming on. I'm like, okay.
That's what your dad used to listen to?
Yeah. Well, he passed away, but before he passed, in the few months leading up to his passing, he started to listen to Enya a lot.
Interesting.
So now Enya reminds me of him. And so Enya came on, and I was like, oh my God, I just burst out laughing, because I was like, okay, wow, however you managed to come on a Mexican, like a Spanish radio station, this is hilarious, Dad. So then I was like, oh, my dad would actually love this, so okay, you're co-piloting, Dad. And then I passed this fish restaurant.
So cool that she's like so open to it, and because for the most part, you always doubt, you know, but you're sure, like you know when there's a message and you just follow it.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I mean, I am now, and at times of distress, like, why not, right? Like,
dark night, right?
Yeah.
Everybody that turns up here at Energy Tulum is just like, where did I get myself? Until you actually get there, and he's like, whoa.
Yeah.
How nice.
Because it's just, you drive through, I mean, I would have never been able to find it on my own, because you turn into the jungle and then you drive through the jungle.
It's the freaky
for like
jungle.
a quarter of a mile. So like, even if I had found the turn, there's no way I would have continued the journey. So anyway, but I kept being told to stop at this seafood restaurant, and I ignored that 3 or 4 times, so I drove in a big circle. But I kept hearing, stop at the seafood restaurant. So finally I stop, and then I'm preparing myself to walk in. I don't speak any Spanish, so I'm just gonna be like
Jenny?
gringa of all time, being like, I'm lost at night, and I don't have cell service, and I'm out of gas, and I'm supposed to be at this place, and like, help. And before I get out of the car, a security guard comes and knocks on the window, and he asks if I need help, and I said, I do. I'm going to this place. And he goes, oh. And he takes a few steps back from my car, and he looks over, and he's like, it's right there. That's the driveway.
You're right here. All right, Enrique's like, you guys have talked too much. We gotta go.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can continue this conversation. It's been a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for being so open, for being so awesome. We still have questions about entities. Do people who sleepwalk a lot, are they somehow connected to different dimensions? I'll tell you what, we're gonna keep that for the next show. Sounds good? Say bye, whatever you wanna say.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you, Allyson. It's been great having you. And you guys, I guess we will see you next time. We do half-an-hour show. An hour has gone by. So this is how pleasant this time has been. I hope you were entertained. I hope you were at ease. And we will see you next time here in another Jenny Live. Stay positive. Bye, guys.